Welcome to our Purpose podcast. We are People and Purpose, dedicated recruitment professionals with deep roots in the HR community. We're here to help you prioritize people, along with a connection to your purpose. At People and Purpose, we believe that fulfilled people make successful companies. We're redefining recruitment by leading with purpose and empowering candidates and employers. We know your mindset matters, and once you master it, you can change your world. You can create the life you desire, build a successful career, and connect with your purpose for yourself, your family, and your community. And remember, you're not alone on this journey. You're part of a community of like minded individuals striving for personal and professional growth. Through our online courses, career coaching, and this podcast, we'll help you experience more freedom and fulfillment. Join us as we delve into a wide range of topics around generalist HR, L&D, Rem and Benz, industrial relations, OD, change management, HR technology, recruitment, and much, much more. By connecting with us on LinkedIn or Instagram, we'll keep you updated with new HR roles, thought leadership posts, industry discussions by subject matter experts, and updates on the HR market. There's always something new and interesting to learn with us. Subscribe now to invest in your future and career today with People and Purpose. And if you think anyone might enjoy this podcast, please share away. All right, welcome back to the show, everyone. Today, we have a very extraordinary guest joining us, Megan Dalla-Camina. She's an award-winning women's leadership and empowerment expert who has dedicated her career to helping women rise. With a background as a corporate executive at global giants like IBM, GE, and PwC, and over a decade as a founder and entrepreneur, Megan brings a wealth of experience and insights to the table. She's the founder and CEO of Women Rising, a program that's empowered over 10,000 women in 65 countries. And she's collaborated with major organizations like Microsoft, Accenture, and BMW. Megan's also the best-selling author of 4 books, and her latest, Women Rising, is already being hailed as a game changer for women in leadership, work, and life. It's like you've gotten deep into the heart and soul of every woman and articulated what we couldn't put into words. So we thank you so much. But Megan's impact extends beyond the boardrooms. She's a dedicated philanthropist, supporting women-focused charities, a lifelong learner holding 2 master's degrees, and currently pursuing a PhD in women's spirituality and leadership. So today we're going to dive into the book a little bit more, particularly the motherhood paradox, because I feel like it does resonate deeply with our community. And Megan, welcome to the show. We are so honored to have you here.
Thank you so much. I've been so looking forward to our conversation. So yeah, thank you for having me.
Oh, I love it. We've known each other for over 11 years. You first presented at one of our network groups after you wrote the book Getting Real about having it all. And I remember at the time you just left a really big corporate job and things were just, starting on this trajectory for you. We'd love to hear from you about the culmination of the research that you've done and your work that inspired your purpose and what led you to writing this particular book.
Yes, gosh, that feels like it literally feels like another life ago.
Yeah.
And it was a decade ago, more than a decade ago.
Love
So
it.
the culmination of all of my work, so I had, for those who don't know, I had an 18-year corporate career. So that's a long time, as people would
Yeah.
appreciate. And in really senior roles, my last role was head of director of strategy at IBM. And I was also responsible for gender diversity and organizational culture and change. And in that role, which I was in for 7 years, it was really when all my lights went on around women and gender and women and leadership and all of the connections. And it was also after I'd had a really bad burnout
Mm-hmm.
where I had given up my job as the director of marketing and taken some time off to get better to come back.
Yeah.
And then did this 7-year role as director of strategy. And all of these pieces started to come together. And that's when I really started to get curious about how do women thrive at work? Because it hadn't worked for me. You know, I was a single mom. I was doing my first master's degree. I was a new young executive in a really male dominated tech company. And that's when I really started my research. I did my second master's degree in wellness and positive psychology. I did my coaching qualifications. I started researching my first book. And like that's really taken us forward 18 years, since
Wow.
the beginning of
Mm.
that period. 4 books later, more research, coaching 10,000 women in the last 3 years alone. And all of that has come together into this book, Women Rising, where I really wanted to look at, so much of the work that I do is about the women, and it's about how we as women step into our power and all of the tools and resources that we can use to do that. For this book, what I really wanted to do was I wanted to bring in the external forces in a
Yes.
very deep way. Because what I find for so many women, and it was me as well back in the day, is that we think that all of the challenges that we have are our challenges alone.
Yeah.
We think it's just us. If we're dealing with confidence issues, or we've got a toxic manager, or we're getting bullied at work, or we've burnt ourselves out, or we can't manage, motherhood and our career and decide to take a different track, we think it's just us. And what women really quickly realize when they come into Women Rising into the program is, oh, it's actually everybody.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter age, stage, race, where I live, what industry, it's all of us. So I wanted to really dig deep into the research around, like, what is this and how do I make this make sense
Yeah.
for myself and for everybody else? Because what I absolutely believe is that there are conversations that we are not having as people who want to create change, as HR leaders and leaders in organizations, that are the absolute linchpins to creating the world and the world of work that we want. And that's what I've written about in this first part of the book, and around patriarchy and societal expectations and gender norms and these
Yeah.
6 paradoxes of power.
Yeah. Which was like when you were going through that research and going through these paradoxes, which do you think was the like you would have had probably a few. Which was the biggest aha moment for you when you were writing this book?
It's such a good question. I think for me, like I'm a researcher and a strategist, I always have been.
Mm.
And part of doing research is, how can I put this together in a way that has never been put together before? That is going to make people go, oh, I'd always felt that, but I'd never heard anyone say that. And now it makes sense.
Yeah.
So for me in doing this work, and it took a lot of time and a lot of like my own research, when I put those 6 paradoxes together
Yeah.
and I really layered in, making patriarchy make sense from a work perspective and from a women's perspective and a leader's perspective, because it's something we never talk about it.
No.
We never talk about the fact that, well, this is where bias comes from. How do we take all of those gender norms and expectations and societal expectations and plug them into the model? And then those 6 paradoxes, which is really this core
Mm.
aha of, there are these 6 things. And when you
Yeah.
really look at them in their entirety, everything starts to make so much more sense. So that for me, and
Yeah. Okay. So like the spokes of the wheel.
the spokes of the wheel, and making it simple enough. Like,
Mm.
how do you distill it and distill it and distill it to keep the essence of it, but not lose the depth,
Yes.
so that everyone can go, oh, now I get it. Now I see that.
I love that. Like, I feel like the motherhood paradox really did resonate with me because I am a career person. My career is really important to me. And I think at least twice in my career, which I'm lucky, I'm sure that women have experienced more, but twice I've actively had people say to me, you didn't get the promotion because you're a new mother now. That was the first one. The second one was, oh, you're thinking about having a third child, so it's not a good idea for you to go into that senior role. And they actually said that to me. So you can't imagine, like you can imagine what happened behind the scenes. So that motherhood paradox: be a great mother, work like you don't have children, Can you dive a little bit more into that paradox for us?
Yeah, like this is, and I was just flicking through the book this morning actually,
Mhm.
and um like it's so, can I just read, let me just read, like just read this one little
Yeah.
paragraph because I
Yeah.
think it sums it up. I think it sums it up really well. The motherhood paradox binds women to impossible standards and lays the groundwork for the endless guilt that working mothers face. When we are at work, we feel guilty for not being with our kids. When we're with our kids, we feel guilty that we're not working and worried that we will fall behind, not meet expectations, or fail. And it's endlessly exhausting, as if working and mothering together wasn't exhausting enough on its own. There's the added guilt and unmet expectations of the patriarchy to worry about.
I feel that deeply.
And I feel like that's why I think that paragraph just lands so strongly, because it is so, it's so entrenched and embedded in our experience as women, yet we don't talk about it. It's not acknowledged, and we feel it on every layer of our being.
Yes.
And it influences every choice and decision that we make. And more importantly, it influences how we feel about ourselves as women.
Yes.
And, you know, it is one of the paradoxes that women have just gone, oh, thank you. Like, thank you for articulating that,
Yeah.
that we have this. I write about it like, you know, like we're chasing this thing that we can never catch
Yes.
when
Yes.
we are working mothers, and we're up against this motherhood paradox that says we expect you to work like you don't
Mm.
have children,
Mm.
and we expect you, society expects women to mother like they don't have jobs outside the home. So how can women ever win?
Yeah,
They
exactly.
never win. One of the biggest breakthroughs on this for women is just to understand that that exists,
Mm.
and that they're not alone in the fight, and that this comes from somewhere. This comes from patriarchy. Doesn't help men much either, by the way. Helps some men, you know, we know who those men are. But for the vast majority of men, patriarchy doesn't support them either.
Yeah.
They're in this toxic, you know, toxic masculinity that we expect men to live up to.
Yeah.
For women, like it hits us to our very core. That's why you like, I feel that.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you think that like it, because obviously there are working women without children, but in saying that, you get to a certain age and then you're a daughter that's looking after aging parents. And I know from experience, a family member of mine over the last few years, her parents health was deteriorating rapidly, and she felt the guilt of working and not being there because they lived a little bit further away. And so she had this push and pull between what she was doing, and she was at the peak of her career. Do you think like that
Yes.
flows onto that also?
Look, it absolutely does. And if you're, I mean, I'm 54. I always have to think about that. How old am I actually? I'm 54. My son's just turned 24. So I have
Mm.
freedom on one side of the equation now. He's a
Yeah.
fully independent adult, but I'm having the same situation with my parents. And
Yes.
that guilt that I used to feel with my son, I now feel with my parents because health issues, right?
Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
just not there enough, even though I
Yeah.
know a lot.
Yeah.
So again, it is this, and it's the expectation that women are set up for those roles. We're
Yes.
set up and conditioned, and the expectation is you will be the one who takes care of, you will be the nurturer, you will be.
Yeah.
And we're already set up as well, like for those dealing with aging parents and looking after our beautiful parents, we're already so set up if we've been mothers
Mm.
that guilt is just inbuilt in us.
Yeah.
So then we just transfer it from our kids to our parents,
I know, right? So,
right? Like, oh, great. Okay, here we go. We just
yeah. Back
move
on the
on to the next
roundabout.
source.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So what can we do? How do we change our narrative? How do we what can we do as female leaders
Yeah.
and those conversations? What conversations should we be having and what should we be doing?
So the first one is like really understand these paradoxes.
Mm.
Like just read it. Like really just read it, really understand what they are, because it will make you feel better.
Yeah.
Because even though it's like, oh my God, we're still dealing with all of this, what I'm hearing from so many women is, and I felt this when I wrote it, just by writing it down and acknowledging that this is the world that we live in, takes the pressure off and makes us feel better. And all of the paradoxes have solutions, right?
Yes.
It's not just here's the problem and go good luck with that. It's okay. For every one of the paradoxes, we're looking at how do we navigate that. There's reflection questions that you can ask and really go through that and actions to take. So for the motherhood paradox, I would love female leaders to really think about, how and where have I experienced this? And
Mm.
if you're not a working mother, where have you seen this in your workplace? Does your best friend experience this at work? Maybe your team experiences this, and you
Yeah.
having that awareness as a leader, irrespective of your gender, number one,
Yes.
and also irrespective of whether you are personally experiencing the mother paradox or not. Certainly, as leaders, we need to understand, the
Yes.
challenges of our people. So, that understanding for female leaders who are working mothers, to think about, and we're lasering on the motherhood paradox, but we can do this across the others as well. Where have these expectations impacted your career? Where have these expectations and this paradox impacted how you feel about your role as a mother?
Yes.
And and how has that shaped your self-identity and
Yep.
the choices that you make for yourself, for your career? Really important as well. Um, and then how do we start to shift this? Because once we understand that this is what's existing and this is what we're operating within, and we've done our own self-reflection, and we're in a leadership position, well, then what is the change that we would like to make?
Yes.
How do you go and get the 10 women on your team and get a book club going and let's look at this and let's look at the paradoxes and let's talk about it. And then where are the men? And how do we bring the men into this conversation so that they start to better understand the lived experience of women? I find that with the work that we do in the Male Allies program with male
Yeah.
managers and leaders, most of those men come in thinking that they're male allies. And what they really quickly realize after they do the first lesson, we have the first coaching call, is that most of them are good guys,
Yes.
but they go, "Oh, I had no idea. And I'm not an ally." But by the time we spend our 8 weeks together and we go through all of the work, they come out as active allies doing tangible things.
Love that.
We got to bring the men in.
Yeah.
We can't do it without them, and they need to be accountable for driving change. And a lot of them want to be.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. That must be really
A
rewarding.
missing piece. It's a
Yeah.
big missing piece.
Yeah, huge, huge. I do like though that you talk about self-care. So like the actions to take, seeking and providing support, embracing self-care, manage your boundaries, awareness and advocacy, challenge and change the norms, and then encourage active fatherhood. I love those actions, and especially that self-care, the permission, put your oxygen mask on first. We all hear it, but getting permission to do it. And I feel that the self-care piece for me, especially over the last, even the last 12 months, like I thought I was looking after myself before, but I wasn't really. It was just like a little thing here, a little thing there. But active self-care is a game changer
Yes.
because you can face all of
Yes.
those paradoxes, can't you?
Yeah, and we have to do it, right? We have to empower ourselves first.
Yeah.
We have to before we can create any change. And particularly HR leaders who are right in the core of creating change. If we are not taking care of ourselves, forget about it, right? We may think that we are, but as you say, so many of us aren't. And that's why the whole second section of the book is on the inner critic.
Yes.
Because a radical form of self-care is to understand and address the stories that you're telling yourself about yourself.
Yeah.
So we dive into that. And then the third part is all about the tools.
Yeah, I love it. I love it.
Really practical tools for how we take care of ourselves.
It's so good. And like when you when you look at like the different personas. Which one did you resonate with the most? I'm curious.
So for those who don't know, there's 13 archetypes of the inner critic that are
Yes.
really these, personas and the different styles and tones of narratives that we have inside our heads. So I'm the overachiever. I don't think anyone who knows me is like, well, of course. So that's mine. That is now, quite in control. But it's also for our inner critics, it's understanding, where does this come from?
Yeah.
Like for me, my overachiever is linked to my purpose. Like I'm so passionate about my purposeful work, about supporting women, that's what drives my overachievement. It's not for the sake of nothing, like it's for the sake of something very specific.
Yeah.
So when I understand that, it really helps me understand my inner critic that's saying, you're not doing enough, you're not doing enough, you're not having a big enough impact. What's next?
Yeah.
And lets me work with the strategies to tame that, use the light side of that, which is impact,
Yes.
but tame the shadow. And that's what we go through for all of them. But for other people, they could be the perfectionist, or
Yep.
they could be the people pleaser, or maybe
Yep.
they're the ideal mother where they're really stuck in this motherhood paradox.
I'm a good girl.
Oh, you're a good girl. Say more about that.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I think it comes from being the eldest daughter as well, and like I think there's a lot of different things that led to that. Yeah, that's a whole nother coaching sort of
Well,
program.
we do a
Yeah.
whole conversation on that. I mean, the good girl is the way I describe the good girl is the true daughter of the patriarchy. The true good daughter, whether that's literally or
Yeah,
just daughter of the patriarchy, that I'm the one who's going to take care of people and always like I'm going to run within the lines that have been laid
yeah,
out.
yeah. But I'm done with being a good girl, Megan.
Yes.
We need to change it.
Yes.
We need to,
There's a chapter on that in Simple Soulful Sacred.
oh,
That's called,
my
oh, you've got it
oracle.
there. The good girl chapter.
Yes. I open this sometimes just for inspiration.
Yes, like an
Like,
oracle.
like the purpose of a formal practice time is to establish and sustain the awareness of inner tranquility that is always available to us. In the hubbub of everyday life, it's easy to forget that each of us has this innate capacity to be calm and peaceful. It's like, thank you. Thank you for that reminder.
I love that book so much. I
So
just
good.
like balm for the soul. Yeah, I picked it up the other day. But that thing about the good girl as well, right? And like we're so done with that.
Yep.
Like let's all agree that we're done running within the lines of the patriarchy. And
100%.
that we all give ourselves permission and give each other permission as women, because
Yep.
everyone's a judger, everyone has an
Yep.
opinion, to like just do you and let me celebrate that. And
Yes.
let's just be done with
Yeah.
being the good girl.
Yeah, and permission to do that. Like as a good girl, you need permission. So we give you permission not to be a good,
Yes.
go be a rebel.
Yes. Go be a rebel. Go be,
Yeah.
yeah, I love
With
that.
a cause, not without.
Yes. And like I just love the question, for the sake of what?
Yes.
I ask myself that all the time. I ask my team that all the time. I ask the women that in the program and in the book. So that what you do is intentional and purposeful. Like,
Yes.
for the sake of what are we doing this? For the sake of what are we stopping doing this? Yeah, like
Yeah.
what is it? And that can really help with boundaries, with your life vision and your purposeful goals, with your inner critic stories. Yeah, with all of it. Such a powerful question.
It is a really, really powerful question. I will I'll put the link to the book in all of the, everything that we have around this podcast so you can find it easily. And if you need it or you can't find it, just send me a DM, and I'm sure that Megan would be happy to connect with you over LinkedIn as well,
Yes,
because
please.
the
Yes.
work that you put out, your blog, all of the information you have is invaluable, and it's very much worthwhile keeping up with what Megan's talking about as a thought leader.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited for next year and other good things in the pipeline.
We're going to have some fun stuff coming up. Yes. So stay tuned and you'll hear about what Megan and I are going to do together next year in People and Purpose, Women Rising, and all the other good stuff. So thank you so much, Megan. I appreciate you and loved having you on today. It was really fun.
I appreciate you and loved our conversation. Thank you.
Thank you.